It made perfect sense, and God confirmed it that He wanted me to go in and be a chaplain in the Army, which I did. So I did the Marines for 4 years, then I did the Army for 16 years as a chaplain. So currently I'm a pastor of a church, lead pastor of Crossgate Church in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
My dad's really smart and really funny, and he loves, just by looking in here, he loves his books, he loves to read. He's a big history buff. He really enjoys those kind of things. He loves hanging out with us. He's very loving and caring, and I love my dad.
It's kind of scary because he's super big and he's bald. But overall, I would rate him a 11 out of 10.
So actually, I felt called to the ministry long before I ever joined the military. So I was saved when I was 17, and then probably no more than about 4 or 5 months after I was saved, I felt that God was calling me to full-time gospel service.
So at that time, we were living in Chicago, and he was a student, and joining the military was not something that we had ever talked about. So he presented it one day. He had actually gone and spoken to an Army chaplain recruiter that was close to where we lived. I don't think I had the best response. Probably a lot of questions and maybe some skepticism about why in the world would we do this? So that was probably my first response.
And when I was in high school, definitely felt like I wanted to join the military, if nothing else for a season, just to do some patriotic service and ultimately also to get some money for college. So what I did is I actually joined the Marines right out of high school and did that for 4 years. I had already felt called to the ministry, but again, do some patriotic service, get some money for college, and then the idea was to get out, go to college, go to seminary, and then be the pastor of a church or something along those lines.
Joining the military was not on my radar, but it was certainly a part of the Lord's plan for our path. And it led to just some amazing opportunities in terms of places that we got to live. I would say it strengthened our marriage, probably in more ways than I even know. But just looking back over our time, it was challenging, certainly life-altering, but all in all, it was great.
As the head chaplain, I would go out and do these chapel services. And the students go from Georgia to the mountains of North Georgia, down to the swamps in Florida, all these different phases, and we do chapel through all those phases. And so we kind of developed a messaging, a gospel messaging, where we take them from one to the next and kind of build on the message and call guys to be saved and call guys to get baptized. And so Ranger School graduation takes place at a small lake in Georgia called Victory Pond. And so these guys are getting their Ranger graduation, which is like one of the highlights of their career. And then for the guys that had already expressed an interest and we had counseled with them, as soon as the graduation was over, we take them right over to the boat ramp at Victory Pond and we baptize them there.
Growing up in the Army, it's like cool because you meet like a lot of new people. It's just really sad having to say bye to them a lot because I've said bye to a lot of people. But I think it's neat because like you get to travel to a bunch of like different places and experience like a lot of new things.
One big change is when you're in the Army, you're constantly moving a lot. And while we're here, since my dad's retired, I kind of have that knowing of like we're not going to be leaving anytime soon, Lord willing. I like it a lot here. It's really pretty and the town's fun. I have met a lot of good people.
Probably just not having that father figure, like a lot of kids, I'd see them with their dads and my dad was just gone a lot. And so that took a toll on my childhood, which stinks, but when he was with us, like we made the most of our time with him.
I always loved the local church, and obviously being a chaplain in the military is not, you're not the pastor of a local church. I mean, you're a pastor, you're doing ministry, but it's just not the same setting. So I knew it was only a matter of time before God took us back to the local church. The question was when and where. Well, as I came up on my time of retirement from the Army, I knew that was going to be the time. So the end of 2019, definitely the time. But Shara and I also said, God, we're willing to go wherever you want us to go. No matter where it is, you tell us and we'll go there. I even talked to a church in Okinawa, Japan. When I heard that church was available and somebody said I should talk to them, I was like, that's crazy. I'm going to take my family to Japan. But then God was like, wait a minute, didn't you say you were willing to go anywhere? I was like, yeah, I did say that, Lord. So turns out they were already in the process of bringing on their executive pastor to be the lead pastor, which made a lot of sense. But I think that was a test from God. And so this lady named Peggy, my wife and I got to know her pretty well. And she said to me, she said, how's the search going? I said, well, we got some fishing poles in the water, we'll see what happens. And she said, well, I know a church in Hot Springs, Arkansas looking for a pastor. I'm thinking, Hot Springs, Arkansas? Where's that? Right? I mean, I never heard it. No offense, but I started hearing banjo music, It's like, Hot Springs, Arkansas. But bottom line is, I started looking into Crossgate and come to find out, here's a church with tons of potential. Again, it's a multi-generational church leaning into the next generation. Meanwhile, I was doing some homework of my own just about Crossgate and found out that, Crossgate had been through a tough season. And I really felt like what Crossgate needed was just a refocus on the basics of making more and better disciples, right? The Great Commission, evangelism, discipleship, just the fundamentals, but they also needed some good leadership.
Coming to Arkansas wasn't necessarily some huge change. I'd never driven through Arkansas, or I don't even know if I'd flown over Arkansas before we came. But it was, I think, just in many ways, a confirmation for us that we were still just willing to go where the Lord wanted. And if that was Hot Springs, Arkansas, then that's where we would go.
I felt then, as I feel now, that for this season, what I bring to the table is exactly what Crossgate needed, and God just confirmed that many times over. So yeah, we came here with absolute conviction that this is exactly where God wanted us.